And we are back here on Metalholic Radio, the Asylum. You just heard Sons of Malice from Savage. And of course, we've got three members of Savage here right now. We've got Andy Dawson, Chris Bradley, and Kristian Bradley, all the way from the UK. How are you guys doing, man?
We're all feeling good, matey. How are you?
I'm doing absolutely wonderful. We're glad you guys could hang out with us a little bit tonight. As you know, I love the new album, Sons of Malice, but a lot of people listening to modern metal and hard rock don't even know who Savage is yet, which is a terrible thing. We're going to have to fix that. So,
please.
So, but I want to talk about the new album as much as we can, for sure. But by way of introduction, especially for those who don't know who Savage is yet, maybe you could introduce each of you and then maybe tell us a little bit of the backstory on the band.
Okay, I'm Andy Dawson. I'm lead guitar. I'm Chris Bradley, bass guitar and lead vocals.
I'm Chris Bradley Jr. or Kristian, and I play rhythm guitar.
And then we've got Mark Nelson, who's not present tonight. He's drums. And that's the kind of current 2012 lineup. But Savage goes back all the way to 1978, when we were very, very young and very, very young. So we've got quite a long history of, kind of doing the kind of stuff that we do. And we started out playing covers, and then we started writing our own stuff really quickly. And just getting out and playing, getting the name around, and then we got kind of a couple of compilation albums. I don't know if you guys have those over there, just kind of local bands getting together. And we kind of got our first record out in '83, which is Loose and Lethal. That was the album that kind of broke the band, and then we've been kind of off and on ever since, really. And the new album is kind of where we're at and what we want to push and what we think people should be listening to every day.
Well, and Andy and Chris, the bassist vocalist, I'm just going to call you Chris and Kristian so I don't mess it all up. So Andy and Chris, you guys have been with the band since the beginning. And
yes, we are pretty much the band where it was pretty much me and Andy.
Right.
Obviously, I'm the lead vocal, Andy is the lead guitar, and we write the majority of the songs together, so pretty much the sound of Savage is us. But for once, we've actually got two other guys in the band that actually sort of live up to me and Andy as well.
You had to create a member of the band to get it there. So
it was built in a laboratory.
Yeah, the apple didn't fall too far from the tree there, I think.
So now,
interestingly enough, Kristian was a baby when we actually recorded Loose and Lethal, and his mother brought him into the studio as we were mixing it, and it did nothing but scream the house down all the way through. And I don't think it was an appreciation of it.
Well, sometimes it takes people a while to come around. Now, when you guys originally did those early compilations, and that's how, for those of us over in America, got into a lot of that new wave of British heavy metal, the Nwabam scene. That's how I discovered Def Leppard and Saxon and Iron Maiden and a lot of those bands, and of course Savage. And there's an interesting story that a lot of longtime Savage fans would know, but probably newer fans would not know. But a young Lars Ulrich, who is in Metallica, of course, picked up a copy. Yeah, yeah, exactly. Who's that guy? He picked up a copy of one of those compilations, I believe, because he's Danish anyway. But he was over in England, if I remember correctly, picked up a copy of one of the compilations, brought it back to the guys in the Bay Area, and this is way back when Kirk Hammett was still in Exodus. This was when it was still Dave Mustaine, and they cut one of their very early demos. They cut a cover of Let It Loose, which you had on the first album.
The compilation album was called Scene of the Crime, and we had 2 songs on that album. And I remember Lars telling us a long time ago during a night of beer tasting in London. This was actually for Kerrang magazine, so we'd got a good excuse to be drinking a lot. And he told us at that time, he says, they'd received this album, they learnt both songs, and they actually did both songs on a demo and sent it into Megaforce along with other stuff, and that's how they got signed up. I mean, interestingly enough, if you look on the Garage Days album, if you look on the covers, if you look inside, you'll see lots of playlists from gigs.
San Francisco gigs.
Yeah.
Early days.
If you look down those playlists, you will find the songs on the playlist.
Right.
Although the songs aren't on the album, unfortunately, because that would have made us quite a few pennies.
That would have been nice. Yeah, well, I'm from the Bay Area, so I was around that era when Metallica sort of started to break loose, although they sort of had to go to the East Coast to do it. But you know, when you think of the Nawabum sound, you know, you guys were right in the mix, but you guys had something more going on. There was more of that speed element to it, more of the aggressiveness, and I think that's what lent itself so well to the guys of Metallica picking it up. But fast forward, these many years, and I got to tell you, I mean, I love the early stuff and everything, but Sons of Malice is just a beast of an album. I really think it's your best work to date.
Thank you.
That's great to hear.
So do we.
Well, see, I can say it. When bands say it, it's like, this is our best work ever. It's like, yeah, that's what you said about the last 15 albums.
Yeah.
So.
I think if you wanted to look for a tag for the album, it's the stuff that inspired me and Andy to start a long, long time ago. Sort of brought up to date and in modern era, if that makes any sense.
No, absolutely.
I mean, our influences initially when we first started out is bands like Deep Purple, Black Sabbath, Thin Lizzy, UFO. They were all British bands. What we refer to as old school now, but these were the bands that sort of drove us on. Obviously, our first album was somewhat different to all those bands, but then again, every album we've ever done has never been really like the previous album. The thing is about Savage, it's difficult to pigeonhole us. We don't do the same album each time, unfortunately. That seems to have cost us a lot in the past because we don't keep doing the same album over again, but we like to change and move things and do stuff different. This album, I think this album is sort of very much taking us back to where we all started out many, many years ago with the modern sound.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's definitely got a very modern feel to it, but it still encompasses that old school feel of bands like UFO, Thin Lizzy, and stuff like that. And I heard a lot of that in the album. I even heard, even though I know that wasn't really what you necessarily had in your sound coming up, but I even heard some early Van Halen in there. At least that's what it sounded like.
Well, yeah. Andy will tell you about Van Halen.
You're right on the money there, because Van Halen, the first kind of early stuff, was a big influence on me particularly, and like Let It Loose was, you know, my kind of being a 17-year-old trying to write something that maybe Van Halen would play. So you bang on there.
I suppose it could be very safe to say that Van Halen was the catalyst that changed everything that we did. We moved. It was like all the old school mixed with Van Halen. Is that what was the Savage sound? We were massive early Van Halen fans. I cannot stress
it's kind of a weird,
the impact that band had on us back in '78.
It's a bit of a weird mix, I suppose. A lot of British stuff, and then Van Halen coming in the middle of it.
Yeah, but it comes together so well. And when I'm listening to the album, there are moments, and Chris probably can't hear this himself, but there are moments where you actually pick up in his voice that he sounds a little bit Rothian, if you will.
And that's strange. I never wanted to be. Well, I couldn't be Dave Lee Roth. Dave Lee Roth.
Who can?
Dave Lee Roth is unique. He's a character all of his own. There's no way you could emulate Dave Lee Roth. But I used to love the fact of all the screams and ow and all this bit, and I did that all over the first album. But nobody ever actually picked up that that's where I got it from. It was directly from Dave Lee Roth.
Yeah, and there's a little bit of
but
that.
But it's not getting a royalty if he's listening.
It's not bringing you any damn money yet, though. So now, Kristian, obviously you came up with your relatives here doing this stuff already. Who were your influences?
Pretty much what I mean. You know, growing up around my dad and Andy, you know, listening to the same sort of music as an early adolescent, really, a junior, if you like, until sort of found my own sound and things like that. Bands like Metallica, you know, bands like Iron Maiden, as you say, Van Halen as well. as well as all the early stuff, the Lizzie Queen, stuff like that. But my favourite band is Machine Head.
Nice.
My influences are a fair bit heavier than Dad's and Andy's.
So is it hard for you to tone back a little bit when you're playing this stuff?
Well, no, because I was brought up playing it. That's how I learned to play guitar. Learning savage riffs, learning Van Halen riffs, learning extreme riffs. It was that sort of thing. It wasn't until I got competent, if you like, at playing guitar that I started playing more complex things, thrash metal, Slayer, Metallica riffs, Iron Maiden riffs, that sort of thing.
Well, I'm actually it's funny that we're pegging all these bands. We're doing this series each week of ranking the best albums from different bands. We just released Judas Priest yesterday, but Iron Maiden and UFO are a couple of the bands that are coming up. So I would ask you, Kristian, what would you say is the best Iron Maiden album?
Number of the Beast, probably.
Number of the Beast.
For me, it's Killers.
Killers, yeah. See, you got to go back to the Di'Anno era.
Yeah.
But what about for you guys? What about UFO?
Strangers in the Night, because it's got a mix of all the albums on there.
What was the last studio album before that?
Yeah, we're talking studio albums, but yeah.
If I had to pick a main album, it would have been Lights Out.
Obsession for me.
Lights Out and Obsession. I have to say, Strangers in the Night may well be the all-time greatest live album, but
not quite. Live and Dangerous.
No,
live, yeah, Thin Lizzy, that's a great one too. So, but all right, so let's talk about Sons of Malice. It's been a while since you guys put an album out. What brought you together at this point to make this album? What was sort of the catalyst to get you guys back in the studio?
The catalyst, after wearing my language on radio, is all the crap had disappeared. But this crap was nothing to do with us as band members. There were lots of personal stuff going off that got in the way and made things difficult. Andy got divorced, I got divorced, Andy lost his father. There were lots of things that it just seemed that we started talking about, right, let's get the next album, and then something else would come in of a personal nature, deeply personal nature, and it really screwed things up. And it wasn't until sort of 2009 that we were sort of in a position to go, right, let's go for it. And then there's still crap going off in the background while we're doing it as well, yeah.
There's still been more bereavements and marriage breakups.
Mark lost his mother. Andy recently lost his elder brother, Simon. Simon was actually the very first drummer in Savage.
Right.
It's the reason that Andy's in the band.
That's
because I was desperate to get his brother in the band as the drummer, because drummers are very hard to come by, and Simon came along with his young 15-year-old teenage brother, and basically we had Andy was in the band because his brother was in the band.
Wow. It's always great to hear those stories. Of course, the tragedy of it is as we're getting older, we're losing a lot of great people, those really close to us, and just those that we emulated and were iconic. Obviously, Deep Purple, John Lord just passed away. There was a man who made a mark with that Hammond C3 organ. Boy.
Yeah.
So, but, the new album, and I'd love to talk about a few of the songs and stuff as well, because there's just some great material on there. But, and for those of you listening out there on Metalholic Radio, crap is a euphemism for shit. Is I think I was trying to say.
If I'd known, I could have said shit to start with, Rustin. I would have said shit.
Shit!
There you go. So, yes, this is Metalholic Radio. This isn't your typical terrestrial. All right, so now did you guys, obviously when you guys started out, it was all old school analog stuff, but now everybody's all about Pro Tools and digital. How did you guys do this album?
We did it. We did use Pro Tools, but it's just a useful technology. Is what you make of it. There's a lot of argument about analog sound warmer and better, but it's really about your instruments, the amps, and the kind of kit and everything that you use. So all we use Pro Tools for was to capture the best kind of sound that we could get in studio, and then. Yeah, it's really useful for, if you want to edit or you want to cut things in and out. But that's the technology there, but it is just there to capture the band. We still sound like a classic rock band, even though it's, in the digital era.
The reality is it was, more than anything, it was just convenient for us to use it because Andy works for the local authority, council, civic thing to you guys, and he works with youth in the arts arena, and the studio is part of the building that he works from. So it's just convenient and easy for us to use the studio that Andy works around all day long.
Well, the nice thing that you get, I mean, because you guys did manage to pull out some of that classic analog feel, even though you're using digital and Pro Tools, but which, as you said, it can be done if you if it's done right. But so I'd love to hear a few of the stories behind some of the songs. First off, tell us a little bit about the concept behind the album. You've got some artwork on the album. Now, who did the artwork for it?
It was a mixture of a young guy called Tommy Snowden, who did the kind of front cover Angel, and then a guy called Andy Warwick did some kind of design at the back of that, and then we've still got the original kind of scanned version of the Savage logo, which was done by a guy called Gary Sharp from the very first album. So it's a bit of a composite, really, and I have to say it was probably the hardest thing to sort out, and probably took longest to sort out. Just trying to do should be a simple design, became quite complicated. I won't bore you with, but so yeah, it's kind of one or two artists and kind of compiling the stuff together. And the main image is supposed to be a kind of fallen angel / banker, which is kind of revolves around the theme of the Sons of Malice title track. Right. About the way the kind of banking industry is basically, stiffed the rest of us. So that's kind of, the cover came from the theme of the album, really.
Well, for us over here in America, that would be Wall Street. It's basically been chanting it up our arse for a long time now. So
yeah, we all got it. No matter what part of the world you're in, we all got a taste of it.
You guys, your bank started it, didn't they?
Probably. Blame us. It's worth.
Yeah, Lehman Brothers.
Now, "Blow" is one of my favorite tracks on the album, and to me, the guitar riff on there that has a nice strolling guitar riff that reminds me of Thin Lizzy. Was that an intentional thing, or is that just some of the influence that came out?
It was a kind of half-written idea that I'd been carrying around for some time, and when we were putting the album together, we were quite a way into it, and I just kind of pulled this old version out, sent it over to Chris, liked it. The thing was, it was kind of with a different band, so we just pulled it apart, started again, but the main riff really and the kind of chorus is all that remains. So it was just an idea that's just, you get these, what you think is a great riff, and sometimes you just have to sit on them until the right opportunity comes along. And it just felt right when we played it, and then when we recorded it, it seemed to really come together.
Now, not to get too far sidetracked, but we've mentioned Thin Lizzy a number of times. There's talk about, because Thin Lizzy's obviously been touring quite a bit. My friend Damon Johnson's playing guitar with him now. But they're actually talking about maybe making a new studio album. How do you guys feel about something like that with Phil not there?
For me, because I am a massive Phil Lynott fan, I would think it's like Queen trying to do an album without Freddie Mercury.
Amen. That's my feeling too.
Yeah, it's not. I don't think.
I have no problem with the guys doing new stuff at all, but to call it Thin Lizzy, it can't be, because Thin Lizzy was Phil Lynott.
Right.
Good. Scott Gorham's there, so it's going to be good stuff. But for me, it's. And my favourite line of Thin Lizzy was the sort of Live and Dangerous show, when it was Brian Robinson, Scott Gorham, Brian Downey, and Phil Lynott. No keyboard player. Right. Sorry, Darren, but that was Thin Lizzy for me. That was when it was the Twin Guitar Attack. That's when they were in the heyday, Jailbreak, Johnny the Fart, Bad Reputation. Great albums, absolutely great albums, with lots of hit singles on them as well. So. Yeah.
Well, and great band, but it's not just emulating Phil's voice or whatnot. There was just a soul about him that just can't be replaced when you get ready to record something new and write something new. So, but
right.
Monkey on My Back, to me, We talked about Van Halen a minute ago. To me, it almost sounded like a collision of Skid Row and Van Halen. It had that 80s metal flavor, but sort of a modern version.
I'm kind of going for, I suppose, an Aussie vibe, to be honest. So maybe, yeah.
Well, see, now I'm going to have to go back and listen to it again, see if I can pick that up. One of the true beasts on the album, "Waking the Dead." What's the story behind that song?
Well, for musically, it was quite an off the cuff. I remember we were in the rehearsal room, and it was kind of, let's do something like, that kind of groove, and it just fell out. Really, the whole riff just kind of fell out, and
I think you were trying to be quite ironic, weren't you? A little bit.
The idea was to actually do something like that we've not done since Loose and Lethal, which was China Run. That sort of Iron Maiden feel, which pretty much every Iron Maiden song's got a
the gallop,
the galloping guitar.
Yeah.
So I just threw a riff out, like almost like going, "Oh, God's sake, whatever," and then everybody went, "That's great." I'm like, "Really?"
But the song lyrics are a tongue-in-cheek thing. It's pretty much about it's not a Black Sabbath Raising the Dead type idea for lyric. It's more about just saying because you're getting older doesn't mean that you've got to give up on life. The Waking the Dead is basically stop giving up. Perhaps maybe are 50, 60, 70, whatever. You're not dead yet.
We're not 56.
So keep living, and because you're a long time dead.
And of course, one of my favorites on the album too is the Hanging Tree, and I love that sort of ominous spaghetti western intro. For those here in America, think early Clint Eastwood westerns.
It's Clint Eastwood. It's for a few dollars more.
Is it?
It's here I've had in my head for many, many years, and the opportunity came this time. And I said to the guys, I've always enjoyed that part from the movie with the pocket watch and the chimes. I'm a big Clint Eastwood fan anyway, and I'm a big John Wayne fan. I like westerns, and the idea was to do something along those lines. Andy had this acoustic guitar intro thing, and it just seemed to work really well together.
The weird thing was we were watching the film the other day, and the pocket watch kind of piece came on, and kind of expected the Savage guitar piece to kick in. It was like, oh, where's that then? Because we're so used to hearing it now that actually it feels like the film is lacking the guitar part. But it's so just atmospheric, and then I think as the riff kicks in, and I'd say it's my favourite track on the album.
Yeah, mine too.
It was also me sort of doing something for my grandson, which is Kristian's son, and that's why I used his name in the song. It's a cowboy song for little boys.
There's just so much great stuff on here. Black and Blue sort of had a Whitesnake groove. To me, it was that song.
Yeah.
I was in denial.
Andrew's been in denial about that one since the day we wrote it. But
I was trying to, in my head, I was trying to do Metallica does blues.
And I couldn't get that Whitesnake groove out of my head when I wrote the lyrics and melody. I could just see Coverdale all the time, and I couldn't get around it. So we went with it anyway. I still like it. It's a good song.
All right, so I've stolen you guys for like 30 minutes now. So the last thing then, before we get out of here, from each of you, name for me the album, if you will, that was sort of that epiphany moment for you when you first heard it or whatnot, where you said, this is what I want to do with my life.
Oh, that's a real difficult one. Somebody asked me that other day, and I said I couldn't come up with... If you really want me to say an album that made me really want to do this all the time, probably Jailbreak.
Well, was it something else other than an album? Was there a concert you saw, or just some moment that sort of...
No, it was watching... I mean, I sort of grew up through the early 70s, so for me... bands that probably won't register you, but we had British bands. We had what they used to have called the glam scene,
right?
Where it was glorified rock bands, really, and the bands at the time were Sweet, Slade,
right,
and Mud. And I used to watch these bands and just think, "Oh, I want to do that." Okay. It was later on, sort of in my very early teens, when I started listening to Black Sabbath and Deep Purple and Led Zeppelin, and my the thing that really turned it for me was when I started listening to Thin Lizzy. The first Thin Lizzy album I ever heard was actually Vagabonds of the Western World. And I immediately went out and started using my pocketbook every week and started buying all their records.
But it was the early glam stuff, huh? The Slade suite.
And from that same period would have been Queen. Queen was part of that period. I mean, most people just remember for being Rhapsody, but that was sort of like 5 albums in.
Right.
Queen, I sort of knew them from way beyond that, where their first single hit in the UK was called Seven Seas of Rye.
Right.
That's on Queen 2, the second album. So I was a big Queen fan long before it became very popular to be a Queen fan.
So, Kristian, what was your moment or album that sort of tripped it for you?
Probably
Lethal.
Probably growing up around these guys for me. I also remember getting an Extreme video, Photo Graffiti.
Uh-huh.
When I think I was probably 8 or 9 at the time.
Porno Graffiti.
No,
the video was
Photo Graffiti was the video. I think probably cross between that and there used to be an old cable TV show as well, which my dad used to tape with a few bands on. I always remember seeing Seek and Destroy on there, a little bit of Thin Lizzy stuff, Skid Row. There's too many to count, mate, to be perfectly honest with you.
For me, I would say I'm quite late coming to the Beatles. Obviously, when the Beatles were active, I was like just a baby, but I think my dad brought an album home from work or something, and I think that's always stayed with me because the Beatles have got some great riffs and some great melodies, so I think that's where my love of melody and riff has come from. But in terms of kind of hard rock music, it would probably be Obsession, UFO,
and Simon.
Yeah, my brother.
Simon was a rock fan, and he used to, and your elder sister Mandy would have brought stuff home.
So it's all that early
Deep
stuff.
Purple. And...
Right.
So yeah, Purple, Made in Japan. I think Van Halen 1 was a big deal. UFO, and Lizzy.
Okay, so Andy and Kristian being the guitar players, I have to ask, since we've mentioned both bands, who wins here? Eddie Van Halen or Nuno Betancourt?
Van Halen.
Eddie.
Eddie is God.
Yeah, Eddie Van Halen.
Eddie is God.
There would be no Betancourt without Eddie.
Yeah, there wouldn't be any of these without Eddie Van Halen.
There's been no Van Halen without David Lee Roth.
This is true. Okay.
Yeah, but we're talking in terms of guitar players. Eddie Van Halen was just a complete innovator. There was nothing like that before.
There's always been 3 players for me: Van Halen, Michael Schenker, and Gary Moore. They're the 3 guys that I wanted to be.
EVH all day.
And people then for me would be Phil Lynott, Freddie Mercury, and probably David Lee Roth.
Awesome, guys. Thanks so much. Andy, Kristian of Savage, the brand new album, Sons of Malice. Brilliant piece of work. Get out there, buy it. Do not illegally download it. Support the artists. Where can they pick this up, especially for those of us here in America?
You will get it on Amazon, no problem.
Amazon and iTunes.
Play.com.
Sweet.
iTunes for you guys, I think.
We are talking with a well-known American metal label with regards to releasing it, but nothing's come of that yet.
Sweet. Well, hopefully you'll keep us apprised if that happens. You guys did the video for Sons of Malice. You guys thinking of doing a second one, or is that waiting to see how the album goes?
Yeah, there's. Well, we're talking about it. We'd like to do another one. I think the Sons of Malice came out so well, and it's been a good tool, for people to see and hear the band. So I think we'll be doing something else.
Right. Have you guys sort of picked which song it will be?
I think basically you guys have picked which song. The song that gets the most mention, guaranteed every time, is The Rage Within. So I would suspect that will be video 2, and video 3 will probably be, you've already mentioned it, The Hanging Tree.
Then we can do a proper spaghetti western.
There you go. There you go. You picked my 3 favorite songs on the album so far, but then again, it changes all the time. Guys, again, thanks so much for taking the time to hang out with us tonight.
Oh, yeah.
Savage here on Metalholic Radio. Thanks, guys.
Cheers.
Bye.